Perfect.
Hey, fantastic. Hi, Anna. How you doing today?
Hi, Sam. Good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming for the second time. Hi, everyone.
Yes.
My name is Sam Adekunle. I'm the chapter director for Startup Grind. Happy to see you all here today. This is our first event of the year, and we're starting it with a bang, having an event focused on go-to-market, on sales prospecting in 2026. We ended the year 2025 in an amazing way last year, having sessions after sessions, workshops, learning opportunities for founders, for operators, for investors. So this year, why not start with a bang in a way where everyone can learn something to, make these 2026 more grander. So today we're collaborating or partnering with HubSpot for startups to launch this series. We started this series last year. I don't know if anyone was here last year on the first time of the series. It was. I also added it to the description of the event. So the first session is a must watch. So if you've not seen the first session, I would encourage you to go see it or bookmark it or add it to your watch later list on YouTube. So we have the recording on YouTube. This session is also going to be recorded and it's going to be made available on YouTube. So before we kick off, I just want to know in a show of room, just to give like how things are supposed to be. If you want to ask questions, there's an opportunity to ask questions in the webinar chat. So you can put your questions in at any time. We're going to collect all of the questions towards the end. I think the last time we didn't have enough time to like get to all of the questions. But if you put in your questions early, there's a high chance that you're going to get your questions answered. So, and there's no question that's too stupid to ask. So please ask any of your questions. We're going to try to attempt to answer them. So Anna, I'm going to be bringing Anna up on stage very shortly. But before I do that, so Anna leads the startup ecosystem in the UKI at HubSpot for startups. They've been doing series of events, back-to-back series of programs, series of workshops to support the startup ecosystem. And I don't know, HubSpot is a household name by this time. If you're a startup founder, you definitely want to get your CRM right. You want to get out to prospect, how to get your customer information, how to get your sales information right in one place. And HubSpot does that for you fantastically. So Anna and her team, they go extra mile to also teach founders in other aspect of building a company. Maybe it's from fundraise to sales to go to market. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing this today, to expand our body of knowledge. And yeah, so I'm excited and looking forward to what this session holds. Anna, over to you.
Great introduction. Thank you so much, Sam. And delighted to be back with Startup Grind for one of our first sessions of the year. So you're all very welcome. So as Sam already mentioned a bit, I'm Anna and I manage HubSpot for Startups for the UK and Ireland. And my goal is really to help startups grow better with access to the right knowledge, tools, and connections needed to scale. And a lot of the time that is around sales, marketing, and fundraising. So, just to tell you a little bit about what we'll be covering today. So, I'll be setting the scene a bit in terms of why prospecting is broken, but then going into really the new productivity model and what we can really do about it, kind of what's changed. Then going into how you can think about prospecting as a startup in 2026. So, really hoping to go into some really, practical tips here as well. Then we'll be going into some recommended tools so you can put a lot of this really into action. And then we'll be ending the session with a Q&A. So the content should be around 35 to 40 minutes. So would love if you do have questions, please use the Q&A box and I will get to those at the end. So just to tell you a little bit more about HubSpot for Startups before we dive into the content. So, and Sam covered a little bit of this already, but through HubSpot for Startups, we offer educational resources. So that could be, again, all the time it's around sales, marketing, and fundraising. We do a huge amount of programming and events. So that's both in person and virtual. And I cover UK and Ireland for the program, but we are a global team. So we have someone covering a lot of our EMEA markets and across the US as well. So there's lots of stuff going on in a lot of the key cities around the world. And last but not least, we offer discounts on HubSpot and through other providers. So through Startup Grind, you could be eligible for up to 90% off HubSpot, And I'll just leave the QR code there for a second, but we will share all of that afterwards too. So just a question for the group, and if you don't want to write in the chat, you can reflect on it individually as well. Just this will help address like the next steps you want to take in your business as well, to just really think about what your biggest prospecting challenge is today. So this could be just really even just going backwards, just refining your ICP, being able to find the right prospects, maybe like the research stage is taking you a long time. Managing that like outreach can take a lot of time as well. So just to either reflect on that for a second or to pop that in the chat. So I'll just leave it for a few seconds before we move on. We will probably keep going just for time, but if people want to, yeah. So someone's saying standing out, so that's a great one. I think particularly now it can be harder and harder to stand out. There's a lot of noise out there. And I know like people's inbox are even more full. Same with LinkedIn. And I'll be going into like some automated outreach tools later as well, but it does mean it also creates a lot of noise for the people on the receiving end of those emails or other forms of content. And then someone else is saying outreach and research, which is great because we'll be going into some of that as well. Someone else saying keeping track of everything and having a neat and easy to use CRM, finding email details of the contact after finding them on LinkedIn. Okay, great. Well, thank you. I think does everyone have? Yeah, some of those responses were just written to hosts and panelists. So just if you're writing something in the chat, if you want to just toggle to send to everyone, just so others can see that as well if we do more questions. And thank you everyone for sharing. Hopefully that a lot of it ties into what we're kind of covering today as well. So just to go into, as I said, kind of why prospecting is broken, I don't think, and I'll be going into as well as like I do think a lot of the fundamentals have stayed the same. It's just really a lot of it is like a repositioning of what we can do here as well. So today, buyers are harder to reach. As I said, there's like a lot of noise out there. Buyers are sick of like unrelentless emails, like all these follow-ups. There's just a lot of noise, and it's hard to really cut through that. Sales team performance is down, so teams are struggling to meet quotas. That translates both for like maybe larger businesses, but also for startups where you want to really show this to investors, your early stage traction, and that you're meeting those metrics for investors and all of that as well. Budgets are stagnant, so it can be harder. Say if you're a startup you might have a really great AI tool or SaaS tool, but the reality is like say if you're selling maybe if, no matter if you're selling to like a bigger company or a smaller company, a lot of time budgets are changing now. People are being even more stringent about the tools that they evaluate, the time they put into that, and being super crystal clear on like the ROI that they're getting for that. So even if you get to that meeting, it can be hard to make sure you're positioning yourself effectively in that area as well. And then ultimately, it can be harder and harder to meet goals and achieve profitability. So a lot of the time, the problem as we see it is this comes down to productivity. So the old solution of prospecting really being, hire more reps. So really scaling your startup, adding sales leaders, ultimately, adding a full sales team for your company, adding more tools. So, you realize you need something to build your list. You realize you need something for all that outreach, and you just like the list grows and grows, and you have loads of tools that you're spending loads of money on, but you're not maybe being as efficient as possible with those resources. And then more activities. So a lot of sales is, of course, revenue driving, but a lot of that like boils down to what activities, like how many calls the reps are sending, how many emails, etc. So more and more activities. But the problem with this old model is that kind of the way I see it, I suppose three fundamental forces collided to disrupt traditional prospecting. So number one, a kind of crisis of disconnection. Number two, activity overload. And number three, headcount constraints. And just to dive into this a bit more. So buyers have really started to tune out generic outreach completely. So people have always had, there's always been like the ability to do have like email filters and do inbox zero, but people are being even more ruthless about this. I know my own email can just explode, so I tend to follow this inbox zero approach. Next is activity overload. So, especially if teams are under pressure, people are doing more and more outbound as well, and the noise levels really become unbearable for prospects where it's really not like relevant, especially if it's not completely relevant for them. Like I know I've definitely noticed in the last year or so receiving a lot of emails that you can tell it's automated, or the same with LinkedIn. And sometimes it looks like it's a decent email, but it's just not for me, right? So it's just like a lot of people are just maybe reaching out to the wrong folks. And then headcount constraints as well. So you can't hire your way out of this problem in a really capital efficient market. And especially as a startup, you want to be seeing ways you can do this in a more lean way. So this is exactly why just doing more outbound fails catastrophically in 2026, right? So AI didn't really fix this problem, it more so exposed it. So I do think, particularly in the early days of AI and prospecting, it made it dangerously easy to scale the wrong things. So much easier to generate emails faster than ever before with everything at the touch of your fingertips. It's easier to send 10 times more messages than you normally could. But having relevance and actually showing the results got worse. So AI without a new mentor model just amplifies the noise, like all of that kind of bad AI slop. That's what they're saying now. It's like an era of AI schlop, basically. And that can just amplify noise, not really drive results. Um, sorry, go forward. So when we move into the new productivity model, so reflecting on the old way, first of all, again, is just there is a clear productivity problem. So thinking of the old way really being focused on more activities and loads of tools, plus more reps and loads of hiring. And that really was seen to equal productivity. We've seen this both, like, especially say in like larger B2B companies, but also with like startups that scaled really quickly. But this really was disrupted by a crisis of disconnection, activity Armageddon. So, like, focusing, as I mentioned before, on like loads of activities to try to drive results, and headcount constraints. So, the new way really being focusing on the right activities, being connection orientated, plus focusing on having effective reps that are AI assisted. So I'll go into a bit in terms of like using AI as your kind of co-pilot, but the focus really be there being on AI assisted. So having AI do things that really save the rep a lot of time, and not necessarily, especially for the bigger deals, completely, replacing the rep. It really is focused on that AI assisted motion, and that kind of equaling more the productivity. So this is really driven by relevance. So I'll go into this shortly, but really reaching out to the right person at the right time with a message that is personalized to them. Intelligence, so really driven by data and the information you know about that company and that person. And then diagnosis is even more important than ever. So understanding a prospect's needs and challenges before offering that solution, and even before that like first touch point of reaching out. So when we go into really the 2026 prospecting process, so this is a slide I used to use a good bit in like sales process section, and this really being following kind of the inbound sales process of, you have your ICP, you identify who you want to reach out to within that ideal customer profile. You have that first connection with them, whether that be by email, call, LinkedIn, etc. You explore with them if your solution is the right fit, you advise them, and all along that buyer is going through that journey of like awareness, consideration, and decision, and whether they want to use your solution or service or not. And this really being someone going from, a stranger to a customer. So I do think a lot like And when we think about prospecting, I used to always think about it more so as focusing on that, like the prospecting process, more so being focused on the identify and connect stage. So the two first parts of that process. And I do think that a lot of with AI, that can help a lot, especially in these earlier stages of prospecting. And really, where that personal relationship comes in for those higher value sales is in that kind of more advisory role. But really, a lot of it can be automated in the early stages because with AI. So I'll go into that. So, really, when we talk about modern prospecting, the key message here is it's signal led. So having, really static prospecting lists, that kind of idea is kind of dead. High performing startup teams now react to live signals. So these are things like, and again, just to say, this isn't all, I know this, a lot of this isn't brand new. It's just what AI can help with this as well. So live signals could be things like knowing a prospect's, website and product activity. So knowing who's visiting your site, what pages matter, how long they're engaging for. Next is things like engagement signals. So if they've opened your email, maybe they've attended an event or they've, interacted on your socials. Hiring and role changes. So say, for example, if you have a sales AI tool and you can see that a target company, hired a new VP of sales or something like that, or a startup has announced a new funding round, so you know that they have the budget or they're expanding geographically. And then also using your CRM, so things like past conversations, previous interest, context, and engagement patterns. So again, the thing to get at here is like the trigger events isn't something, I'm not claiming this is something totally new in prospecting. This is one of the fundamentals that has stayed the same because it's common knowledge, right? Like if someone reaches out to me with a really personalized message because they can see, I have an event next week that they'd be a good fit for, or something like that, then that's going to be the right timing. So with AI and AI, really with AI agents, they excel at this because they never stop watching. That sounds creepy, but they can always be working in the background. They'll never miss one of these signals and they won't forget the context as well. So you could spend loads of time, like some of it will be like you could spend loads of time seeing, monitoring LinkedIn and seeing if someone that your one of your target accounts has hired someone new or all of this, but like it's going to be easy. Like we're only human. We're not going to be able to monitor things like that 24/7. So being able to automate that and use AI for that is really powerful as well, and will really enhance your message and improve your open rates as well. So just to reflect on as well, have you ever used ChatGPT? This is more of a rhetorical question. You don't actually have to answer. I'm sure most people here have used AI to write a sales email, but just reflect on that. So it can be tempting. It'll save you a lot of time, but sometimes it can reduce if you're just using it, and depending on the prompts that you're using, it can produce, pretty bad quality results. So this is what I'm getting at as well, is like that era of like AI schlop and then like you standing out in amid all that noise and like bad quality AI outreach, because that's worse than like, yeah, I don't know if so I think like people can tell as well when it's like hasn't been refined and everything like that. So when we think about why generic AI outreach fails, I'll talk about that a bit and then I'll talk about how we can kind of fix that. So here's just an example. I won't read it all out, but here's just an outreach email of Jasper reaching out to Lisa. So saying, "Oh, you handle 9 million plus DNS queries. I'm Jasper, and this is what we do, etc." So it's basically saying it's pretty generic. It's like fake personalization that is irrelevant to the problem. A lot of time as well, like depending on the year, like a lot of some of the LLMs could be trained on older copywriting frameworks as well. And again, the bottom is also fake, kind of fake personalization that is irrelevant to the problem. So Personalization is really important, but you want good personalization as well. So we think about, and someone saying, yeah, you see, or Sam saying, yeah, you see fake personalization happen a lot on LinkedIn, definitely. So the solution to this, and we'll kind of talk about it in the next slide. So how it can be really done better is really using custom AI agents, which I'll go into. So really instead of generic messages, these agents focused on relevant personalization. So that's the key here. So I'll read this one out. So it's like, hi, Stephen. Sounds like companies with complex products, big sales teams, and a lot of content on their website will get a ton of value from Emlon. And then instead of having five BDRs searching for these companies and writing emails to them by hand, AI could do this for you. So it's really personalizing the problem statement. So saying for you, all of that kind of stuff. And then saying identify the leads, research them, write copy, reach out and update your HubSpot. So it's really addressing common questions and objections. So really what I'm getting at here is the entire message is proof, not just a promise. So it's really backing up with those personalization, that diagnosis of the problems, addressing common questions, objections, all of that. So really making it more custom because it's easy to pump anything into ChatGPT, and I do use AI for say event overviews, lots of stuff like that. But you have to really, there's a lot that you have to do to prompt it and iterate on it. Like I would never go with the version one of what an AI tool gave me. A lot of it is iterating. Whereas if you use an agent and you've already trained that agent on what good looks like, and really done that work for it, then that will save you a lot of time as well. So how it can be done even better is one kind of here. So hi Oliver, create a custom lead list for you for some customers similar to these ones. See the PS below. So again, it's actually showing like actually because I did get one similar to this recently where it's basically like, oh, do you want to find founders before, it was a very like personalized approach, and they basically were going to give me the output of what their product could do so I could actually see it in action. So I do think this is a powerful thing. So you can see here it's already sent a bunch of like basically the proof that the agent or product works. So I do think this is quite a powerful technique because it's kind of like rather than giving like a full free trial, you're actually just giving a sample of how that could work in practice. So I do think that can be quite powerful as well. So when you think about building a sales pipeline with AI agents, think of it like a combination to a lock, and all three numbers need to be correct for the door and the deals to open. So if you think about this lock, we think about, first of all, you need the right person. So you need to be talking to the individual who has the problem and the authority to make a decision. You want the right time. So they have a problem now. So it should be something urgent that needs solving, not something that's maybe going to be a problem, years down the line. And the right message. So really, this is key. So connecting the problem to your solution. So it's really a lot of it is about demonstrating value and relevance. So if you get these three key elements right, and your AI, basically your AI powered sales pipeline will be really effective. And then, yeah, hopefully that's kind of what I'm getting at here. So it's like the combination to a lock, and all three numbers need to be correct for the door and deals to open, as I mentioned previously. So when you think about actually how to do this in practice, there are some more simple ways, and then there are some more complex ways. So I'll tell you a little bit about these. So you can really build your own custom AI agents to really put that outreach on autopilot without really burning your target market. Because you don't want is just that spray and pray model where you're reaching out to the right people, but you're giving a bad first impression if it's like really bad personalization and automation and there's errors and all that kind of stuff. So that's not what you want. So when you think about building a custom AI agent, it's really things like, and as I mentioned before, if we look at how AI can help with the prospecting in terms of that identify and connect stage. Say if you know your ICP, you know who you're reaching out to, but you want to build lists to really know like you know how you're going to start. So you can use different tools to help you do this and to create really like personalized target account lists and things like that. So I'll go into some of these. I have like a slide with recommended tools as well, so I'll go into that soon. But when we think about automatically building lists, this could be for some of the things I mentioned earlier. So trigger events, so things like, as I mentioned already, like hiring, if there's been job changes, etc. Website visitors, so knowing if someone's visited your website, having that company profile, social signals, so profile views and engagements, CRM signals, so retracking. You can do this in HubSpot, like champion tracking. So say knowing if someone used your product at a certain company and they leave and rejoin a company, like a lot of HubSpot business comes from that, where someone has used HubSpot already and then they want to implement it in their new business. So you can do things like that. Or you can do things like lookalike audiences. So say if a deal was closed one and then you want to replicate that. And then you can use things like Clay for data enrichment as well, and really creating personalized messages, finding emails and engaging leads via email and LinkedIn. And then you can manage basically if you are getting positive replies to those messages, you can centralize all of that really in your CRM. So I'll go into some of those tools again in a second as well. But what I want to get at here as well is AI can help a lot here in terms of that, as I said, like list building and that automated outreach and everything like that. So really, again, that identify and connect stage. But I do think there is a lot that humans still own within this prospecting process. So things they don't replace are AI agents don't replace founder judgment. So really humans still define and control that ICP and constraints. So again, going back to before you're even identifying that list. So who is your ideal customer profile, who you sell to and why? Your strategy and positioning, so how you differentiate and win. So I think the temptation can be to start using AI and start automating everything, but really you want to lay your sales strategy first and your marketing. Otherwise, you're just going to be shooting in the dark, and again, not really having a clear reason for reaching out to these people, etc. Quality control, so what good looks like in practice. And those, I think the important part as well is those trust building conversations. So, especially for higher value deals like in enterprise sales or if, particularly as a startup as well, I do think in the early days when you're getting your first early stage customers, that can't necessarily be unless you're like a really transactional B2C model. If it's a B2B motion, it's still really important to be talking to your customers in the early days and building that trust. But as you scale as a company, you might find that you automate more of the lower end and then have the person in the loop for those more like the later stages of the sales process, or if it's a really high value account. So really, when we talk about AI and agents, it's really removing the grunt work, but not the strategic judgment that drives business outcomes, because we don't want that to become kind of the risk here. So when we think about the new founder advantage when it comes to prospecting, it's really combining you as a founder and the team that you have with AI agents rather than necessarily having to build a small sales team in the beginning. So really a lot of this kind of fundamentally changes the economics of early stage go to market. So the way we think about this really is designing the system. So still defining your ICP, the signals and the engagement frameworks that agents will execute, directing those agents. So monitoring performance, refining parameters and optimizing based on results. And then you don't want to always, like, especially in the early days when you're testing, you do want to still make sure to step in strategically, but then also engaging personally at the moments of the highest value and impact. So this is really how to, especially as a more resource constrained startup, you can win with by leveraging this intelligent automation and really do more with less. But as I said, just making sure you're balancing like still being involved, especially if that's like your first customers, you still obviously want to be gathering that data involved in those calls. It's just trying to think of how AI can again help you with that identification and outreach. So before we move into, I'll go into a bit of a practical walkthrough as well on the tools. So we think about prospecting 2026 summed up and run at kind of the key messages I want to get across. So productivity really comes from four core capabilities working together. So these are relevance, so deeply understanding buyer context and addressing real problems rather than surface level personalization. Intelligence, so processing those signals I mentioned, patterns, and data at scale to really identify true opportunities. Diagnosis, so understanding not just who to reach, but what problem they're facing and why it matters now. And autonomy, so systems that really sense, decide, and act without human intervention, but knowing when to use that autonomy at which stage of the sales process. So, for that initial outreach and just making sure you're measuring that as well, and making sure you can edit it as you see fit if you're not getting the results you want. So it's not necessarily like more and more and more. So not like more reps, more tools, more activities, as I mentioned before. It's really focusing on the right tools and better systems. So just to make things a bit practical as well. So we'll move into some prospecting tools. So here are a few kind of to, I'll go into HubSpot as well, but here are a few just to kind of cover some of those points I mentioned already. So when we think, just think, you can think about it in terms of like use cases, and you don't have to do all this at once. Like you might want to just address one or two key use cases based on I already asked earlier, the challenges you're facing. Reflect on what those challenges are and what the low-hanging fruit is and where you think you'll get results. And like you don't have to obviously go and buy all these things and do all these things straight away. I'd say like start small. But when you think about capturing those signals I mentioned, you can use tools like TheirStock, Teamfluence, RB2B. So those are things like like if people have started a new role, they've been engaging on LinkedIn, all that kind of stuff. I do think Clay for data enrichment is becoming more and more popular. Outreach, so these could be things like Smartlead and HeyReach. So I've tried HeyReach, Ample Market, and going to be using Lemlist soon as well. So those are all like great tools for automated outreach. More so for LinkedIn. So it can depend because some of them, you can do the email outreach, but depending on the country you're in with GDPR, you obviously want to be careful with some of that email outreach if you're getting the emails. So just something to be aware of. Integration, so Make is a great tool for this. And then for AI agents, so things like relevance. So just to put a question out to the group as well, would love for people to learn from each other. I often ask this question on tools. So what prospecting tools are you currently using? So this could be your CRM. It could be like similar to these tools I mentioned, something you're using for outreach. So I'll just give people a minute to reply in the chat. Someone's planning to use HubSpot. Nice, good to hear. LinkedIn. Cool. We'll keep going and you guys can Seamless and Outplay and Zoho. Nice. Perfect. ShipShape. ShipShape.vc is great for finding investors. LinkedIn. Nice. Perfect. So lots on LinkedIn, and there are, if you're not already using, a huge amount of automated LinkedIn outreach tools. I mentioned ones like HeyReach and others. Perfect. So we'll keep going, just conscious of time. So just to tell you, I will be telling you a little bit about HubSpot just to bring this to life, and I'll show you a couple of our tools that can act as agents. Just so again, I don't want us to be, I want to be practical and you to go away with a few things that you can implement in your own business. So for those of you who don't know HubSpot, HubSpot is an AI-powered customer platform that helps go-to-market teams grow. So this we have everything across all customer-facing teams from marketing to sales to service. But what's most relevant, I suppose, for today is Sales Hub, which really helps to power productivity for startups and small businesses and larger companies as well, through relevance. So whether you're sending emails, building your pipeline, doing all that outreach, all that good stuff, that all comes together in one place in Sales Hub. So I'll just bring this to life a bit. So what I will say is I'm going to show you two things. I'm going to show you a bit on our ChatGPT deep research connector with HubSpot and how you can use that for identifying and reaching out. And then I'm going to show you our prospecting agent as well, which I did demo in the last Sales AI session, but I do think it's still super relevant. And yeah, I'll show you that as well. So as I said, you can also build kind of your own agents using some of the tools I mentioned, but a lot of the time, especially when you're starting out, like there's definitely levels of the complexity of an agent you need to build. Like you can build basically like a custom GPT, say for example, within ChatGPT or within Claude, and you can basically just train that, and that can act as somewhat of an agent because you personalize it to your company. Or you could use some of the agent builder tools I mentioned, or we also have like off the shelf agents within HubSpot. So it's just worth mentioning like agents can mean different things to different people. And you don't have to go like super complex with at the start. A lot of it is just making sure it's something that saves you time and is like personalized. So just to show you these two things, as I mentioned, so HubSpot were the first company to launch a deep research connector with both ChatGPT and Claude. So the way of thinking of this is instead of like, say you have all of your prospect and customer and investor and mentor, like all this contact information and data in your CRM, and you don't want to spend like hours maybe digging through that. You can basically connect your HubSpot account to ChatGPT so that you can use a ChatGPT interface to get access to all of that data. So I do think really data is the kind of the lifeblood of AI, and having access to all of that structured and unstructured data from your CRM and being able to really use that for your prospecting process is really helpful. So I'll just show you this one quickly before I go into the prospecting agent. So we're going to go, so just first of all, how you enable deep research. And just to note, this is, I believe it's available with all GPT. It's free to connect to HubSpot, but you also have to have a GPT paid account. So just to note that as well. But I show this. So you need to toggle on for the research. So this is the deep research part. And then you can see here, so this is just my demo account, but I've connected it to one of my HubSpot demo portals there. So you can action it there. And deep research it's not like with the normal chat interface with one of these LLMs, so it can take a bit of time to load depending on the number of sources it's drawing from. It could be 20 minutes, it could be a couple hours. So obviously, I preloaded it for you. I'm not going to make you wait to go through that. But I basically just said here, using our HubSpot CRM data, deeply analyze our startup sales lifecycle over the past quarter. And then I won't read all this out, but it's basically saying identify the top three lead source cohorts, emerging patterns. And the important thing here is kind of based on those insights, design a high converting outreach strategy for each cohort. So you can see here, I'm using the data that I already have to identify those leads and do outreach. So that's the important part here. You can also, obviously, if you're an earlier stage company, you might still be wanting to build, like use some of the tools I mentioned earlier to build those lists and to use content to capture new leads. But this one, I just want to show you a use case for how you can use the data you already have. So you can see here, normally with deep research, it might ask you a few questions on like what you want to focus on. So I went pretty broad here just because it was a demo portal, saying it could focus on global data and all industries. And then you can see here, this research only took 20 minutes across five sources within HubSpot. But as I said, it can take a lot longer as well. And then it's gone into different lead source cohorts, all that good stuff. And then basically, so you can see like the level of detail here rather than me spending ages analyzing all that information in the CRM. And then the important part here is got those leads, and then I'm saying create a three-part email sequence for the web form leads. So I basically have identified web form leads as a lead source cohort here. And then here we've got a high converting three-part email sequence that it's written. So just that's a good example of like using the data you already have, making it hyper personalized to those industries. So just wanted to kind of show you that there. And as I mentioned, you can build things like custom GBTs within ChatGPT, which can be kind of fun. So I won't go through this one in detail, but I built like a cold outreach roster. So or roaster. So I just made it like you can basically give instructions and upload different examples of cold emails. And then anytime I want to write a cold email, it'll basically like roast it and then rewrite for me and be kind of honest and funny. So just like something you could try there for your outreach is like you can you can basically use a GPT to show it what goods looks like and kind of maybe if there's specific, there, you could tell it what industry you're targeting and if there's specific things you want to look at there. So just to focus there. And then just one more thing to show you before we go into the Q&A. So throughout HubSpot, we have AI built across the whole platform. So you can use, say, like our co-pilot and our assistant to help you throughout using HubSpot. But one of the most powerful tools, and because we mentioned earlier, are the agents that we have. So our kind of AI products come under what we call Breeze. So there are a bunch of different default agents that you can use within HubSpot. You can see there, you can browse the marketplace, or if you wanted to, you could create your own agent as well. But I'll just show you one of the off-the-shelf ones. So the prospecting agent, because I think this clearly demonstrates some of the stuff I already mentioned earlier and kind of brings it to life. So this is the prospecting agent within HubSpot. Sorry, just take a sip of water. So you can see here, you can basically enroll prospects into the prospecting agent through one of two ways. So you can either have them enroll automatically. So say, for example, if they fill out a certain form or if they take a certain action within your CRM, or if you have a very clear set of target accounts. So say you have like top target accounts you're going after, there's 100 accounts and you can manually enroll them as well. So I'll just go through an example here. So the idea here is really being, as I mentioned earlier, like identifying all of those signals and reaching out can take a lot of time. So you can kind of see this prospecting agent as like a AI BDR that is doing all that monitoring and that outreach on your behalf. And then you're just stepping in when and if necessary, especially if they're like maybe looking for a call or to book a demo. So just to show you, so we'll just go into Marcus Tan here. So you can see there, here there's an email ready for review. So I'll just say review emails. So you can see here that Marcus was enrolled in the prospecting agent, and then that basically this was the Marcus Tan and DBS Bank were researched. So I'll go. Basically, I want to see as well what research was done. So you can see here without me having to do anything other than the prospect being enrolled. You can see here that the agent has automatically done research within the CRM. It's also looked at, the company summary, looked at the web summary, recent company news. Like there's a huge amount of sources there that probably would have taken me hours to do, and that would have only been like at a glance. Whereas the agent has done that automatically. So just to show, going to show you that there. I'll just X out. So if we go into agent setup here as well. So when you're setting up the agent, you can also give it more information so that it knows for outreach, like what your company does, what your value proposition is, what pain points you solve. So it comes down to that diagnosis piece I was mentioning earlier. So yeah, you can give it a huge amount of information, and you can also set guardrails as well. So you can either set it to be, especially maybe if you're setting up agents for the first time, you might want to set it to be in, that you can review it before sending so that it's in autonomous mode, or you can have it to send automatically once you're in a place where you're comfortable that it's sending anyway. And then you can also edit things like have other guardrails. Obviously, maybe you're working in different markets and you want to make sure like people aren't getting emails at weird times. So you can do all of that and then limit like the max emails and the minimum days between emails as well. It's similar. I won't show you like LinkedIn outreach tools today, but as I mentioned, I've used a few different ones, and you can do a similar process in there where you're picking your accounts to target, and you set guardrails like this as well to make sure that you have those in place. So just to pop back into the deck before we go into Q&A. So just reflect on, and people don't have to necessarily answer this in the chat, but just think of one thing that you're going to implement from this workshop. This could be just doing more research, like reflecting on those challenges and what you really want to focus on. It could be researching one of the tools I mentioned, or trying to set up your own, custom GPT within ChatGPT. So yeah, just think on that, just so you're setting yourself a deadline and you're making sure to kind of implement some of these practices within your own prospecting. So I'm happy to take any questions. If you do have questions, it's easier to use the Q&A box, but we can also look through the chat as well. Um, so there's one here. Can you use Gemini, or is ChatGPT the only tool connected to HubSpot? We actually recently launched a Gemini connection as well, I think only a couple of months ago. So we initially had Claude and ChatGPT, and now we have Gemini as well. So that's a newer connection. Um, there's a question. Um, I'm not sure I completely understand your question, Marito. It's you want to use it. How do I make it? You want to just refine that question there. Do you want to use an agent? Do you want to use HubSpot? Um, if you want to just refine that question there. And there's a few questions you want to use HubSpot. Yes, so we do have a program. I don't know if you joined the start of the session. We do have a program, HubSpot for Startups, where you can get up to 90% off of HubSpot. And we also do regular like demo sessions and setup sessions as part of that. So if you haven't already, if you want to apply for HubSpot for Startups, and I can follow up directly if there's more I can help with on that side as well. Um, so any tutorials on HubSpot? So I'll actually just give me 1 second. I'll actually see if I can share. We do have a demo session every month on HubSpot, so I will just send that. Jean asked that in the Q&A, so I'll just pop it into the chat as well. So that's this the session next week is more so if you haven't used HubSpot yet, but if you have used HubSpot, then your best resources is our customer support and customer success teams. And we also have a huge amount on HubSpot Academy and our knowledge base where you can get a lot from that as well. And Marito, yeah, if you're not a customer yet, then I would recommend joining the session next week because that'll give a good overview.
Thank you, Anna. I think we've got some questions in the Q&A as well. Sorry, in the webinar
Yeah.
chat. In the webinar chat, yeah.
Oh yeah. So there's one on can we connect personal ChatGPT with HubSpot? So no, you do need like a HubSpot business account to be able to do that. So that's on the ChatGPT side. Sorry, it's hard to say. Rather than yeah, you need a business account. Um, and then there's a question. Can the prospecting agent in HubSpot web scrape recent news stories, press releases? So yes, I think I showed a bit of that there, but it'll basically gather different website activity as well. So yeah, it can scrape that from the web as well. So it's the prospecting agent isn't just monitoring activities within and information within HubSpot. It also gathers insights from the web. Perfect. Someone's asking just where to start in HubSpot Academy to learn if I'm just starting for the first time. The answer is it really depends. I can send a bunch of resources afterwards. I'll see if I can probably like if you're only just getting started, I would probably start with like I'll pop this in here. Just having a basic understanding of actually setting up the CRM correctly to begin with. So making sure that you have your data in there, that you have the basic settings and kind of user permissions set up. So if you haven't done anything, I would kind of start with that. And then from there, you can kind of refine what you want to do on the sales and marketing side. So yeah, it kind of depends where you're at in your journey, but happy to take questions afterwards as well. So I think that's mostly it. How would you refine what you want to do after that stage? Um, oh, sorry, is that just the question on um if you get a setup with the CRM first? Is that what you mean, Leo? I suppose, and it depends on if you're a are you a customer already or are you thinking of using HubSpot? I suppose a lot of it depends. Thinking of using. I suppose you can like the resources I'm sending are if you're thinking about using it, but we do also have a lot of onboarding as well. So it's deciding if you want to use our the options are to use our self-serve resources. So if you're a HubSpot for Startups customer, you have the option to waive onboarding. And if you don't want to do onboarding, then you can get set up by yourself and use these resources. But I would say if you have a more complex setup or you want someone to kind of walk you through it a bit more, we do have onboarding options as well. So you could go with onboarding with one of our customer onboarding specialists or with one of our agency solutions partners, and they would kind of guide you through that process more. So yeah, different onboarding options depending on what you'd like.
I think there's a question. Yeah, I thought I answered the question, but I think Ranjit is asking the question again. So he's asking maybe there's a connection with HubSpot and say WhatsApp as a
Okay.
tool. Maybe you can use WhatsApp to enrich your HubSpot or something like that in terms of marketing. So I'll just give you the
Ye-
opportunity to answer that.
Yeah, so we do have, yeah, it's worth noting on HubSpot as well. We do have a huge app marketplace. So you've access to over 1,000 integrations. One of those is WhatsApp. I know it's an important one for a lot of territories, so I'll just pop in um, the details on that. But yeah, we do have a WhatsApp integration, so you can basically manage that within your CRM and kind of an inbox interface. And then someone just asking on finding the onboarding team. So those options kind of depend on if you like if you do purchase HubSpot, then you would be connected, that you'd be offered the options and connected to the onboarding team. So it would be done throughout that process.
Great. I think maybe we can take one more question. If there's no more question, then okay.
Okay, there's a question on what the WhatsApp integration is for a paid version only. Let me just double check the link. And you're a HubSpot for startups. So if you're, I'll check on WhatsApp specifically, but usually like with the integrations, like you wouldn't get it. If you're using the free version of HubSpot, like usually the integrations will have their own payment. So say if you're like connecting with Zoom with HubSpot, you don't automatically get Zoom free. You still need to have like a paid Zoom account, right? So you can message me Pankaj on the specifics, but it will depend on yeah what version you're using of HubSpot and what you want from WhatsApp. But I'll put my email in there.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Hannah. And thank you very much, everyone that stayed to the end. I think I've learned a lot from this session. I was just taking notes as you're talking, a lot to learn
Nice.
every time. So, like I said, this is a version two. This is part two, right? So if you've not seen part one, I would encourage you to go see part one before. Also, following up with this knowledge, there's a lot to unpack in part one as well. So this session is recorded and it's going to be live on YouTube. So we're going to be getting an email with the recording and session and all of the session. And I'd also say look forward to some of our events coming up towards the end of the year, towards this year, like from February to December. And yeah, looking forward to meeting you all in person. And Happy New Year.
Thank you so much, Sam. Thanks everyone for joining.
Yeah.
We'll get it. Bye.